Jonah Reed woke slowly, the way someone wakes from a dream they are not ready to leave. At first, there was only warmth. Not the sharp heat of machines or pain, but a deep, steady comfort, like sunlight filtered through water. Then came sound, soft, rhythmic, almost like breathing, though too precise to belong to any living thing he knew. His next thought arrived with confusion. I'm alive. That realization felt heavier than fear. Jonah tried to move and failed. His body responded like it belonged to someone else, distant and stubborn, as if it was still deciding whether to cooperate. He forced his eyes open. The ceiling above him glowed with gentle light, shifting between silver and pale blue. It wasn't metal. It wasn't stone. It looked grown, not built, like the inside of a living shell. Strange symbols flowed along its surface, fading and reappearing in slow patterns. This was not a human hospital. His heart rate spiked, and the room reacted instantly. The light softened. The sound lowered, calming, adjusting to him. Then he noticed the figures beside him. Two silhouettes sat quietly at his bedside, so still that he first thought they were statues. Tall, slender, elegant in a way that made human proportions feel unfinished. Jonah's breath caught. One of them moved. The taller figure leaned forward slightly, and the light revealed her face. Her skin shimmered like deep violet glass touched by starlight. Her eyes were large, luminous, and ancient, carrying a weight that made Jonah instinctively understand one thing. She was in charge of worlds. Beside her sat a smaller figure, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The younger one had the same eyes, the same alien beauty, but her posture was guarded. Her hands rested neatly in her lap. She said nothing. She simply watched Jonah as if memorizing him. Jonah swallowed. His throat burned. Easy, the taller woman said. Her voice was calm, controlled, and impossibly clear. Not translated, understood. His implant hummed faintly as it worked. You are safe. Jonah wanted to laugh at the absurdity of that statement. He was on an alien world, lying in a bed that wasn't a bed, staring at beings humanity had only theorized about in secret research files. Safe was not the word he would have chosen. Where? He croaked. The younger one moved then. She reached out, hesitated, and gently placed a cup against his lips. The liquid inside was warm and faintly sweet. Jonah drank without thinking, his survival instincts overriding panic. You are aboard the sovereign continuum, the taller woman said. This chamber belongs to my house. Jonah's mind struggled to catch up. House. Not ship. Not station. House. The woman continued, I am Velith Oren, High Queen of the Lithari Conclave. Jonah's breath stopped. A High Queen did not sit beside random humans. The younger one finally spoke, her voice softer, almost uncertain. I am a Seren. Her daughter. Jonah turned his head slightly toward her. She met his gaze without flinching, though there was something raw in her expression. Not fear. Not curiosity. Gratitude. Memory slammed into him. The tearing alarms. The sudden ambush. Alien warcraft emerging from folded space like predators. The diplomatic convoy scattering. The breach. Fire. Silence. The pod. The girl. Jonah's voice shook. You were on the envoy ship. Seren nodded once. It was not meant to survive, she said. You changed that. Jonah closed his eyes briefly. He remembered seeing her trapped, the escape systems failing. He remembered not thinking, only acting. Detaching his own pod. Redirecting power. Burning every safety margin human engineering had warned him never to cross. He had known the odds. He had done it anyway. You intercepted a kinetic lance meant for her chamber, Queen Velith said. Your vessel absorbed the impact. Jonah managed a weak smile. Guess that explains the headache. The Queen studied him closely. There was no pity in her eyes. Only assessment. You should not be alive, she said plainly. Jonah shrugged as much as his limited movement allowed. I get that a lot. That earned something unexpected. A small smile. Not from the Queen. From Seren. It was quick, like she realized she had done it and immediately tried to hide it. But Jonah saw it. The room felt different after that, lighter somehow. You remained unconscious for 17 standard cycles, Queen Velith continued. Our physicians used methods your species does not yet possess. Even so, your recovery defies probability. Jonah frowned. Humans are good at that. Defying probability. The Queen tilted her head slightly. We are learning. There it was. That subtle shift. Not superiority. Interest. Jonah's fingers twitched. He tested them. They moved. I didn't do it for rewards, he said quietly. Or politics. We know, SRN said immediately. Her eyes held his with intensity now. That is why it matters. Silence filled the chamber, but it was not awkward. It was heavy with meaning Jonah didn't yet understand. Outside the translucent walls, massive shapes drifted past, ships unlike anything humanity had built. Graceful. Powerful. Alive with purpose. He was in the heart of an empire. And somehow, impossibly, its queen had waited by his side while he slept. Queen Velith stood at last. The room seemed to straighten with her, as if responding to her authority. Rest, she said. You will have many questions. And soon, many choices. Jonah frowned weakly. That sounds ominous. It is, the Queen replied honestly. For all of us. She turned to leave, then paused. Human Jonah Reed, she said, meeting his eyes one last time. Your species believes itself small. Fragile. Temporary. Her gaze hardened, not cruel, but resolute. You are mistaken. Siren remained behind as her mother departed. She did not speak. She simply stayed, sitting quietly beside him, as Jonah drifted back toward sleep. This time, he did not feel alone. And somewhere deep within the vast alien empire, unseen eyes were beginning to turn toward humanity, not as subjects, not as curiosities, but as a force that had just changed the future. Jonah drifted in and out for a while, caught between sleep and awareness. Each time he surfaced, Siren was still there. Sometimes she stared at the shifting lights along the walls like she was listening to them. Sometimes she watched Jonah's face like she was making sure he stayed real. Once, when Jonah's breathing hitched from a sudden wave of pain, her fingers tightened around the edge of the bed, quiet panic hidden under perfect control. Jonah finally forced himself to stay awake. Why are you still here? He asked, voice rough but steadier now. Siren didn't answer immediately. She looked down at her hands, then up at him again. Because I did not understand humans, she said. Not truly. Jonah let out a small breath. Trust me, most humans don't understand humans either. That earned him another fast, accidental smile, then it vanished as if she'd never made it. I was told your kind only survive by bargaining, she said. That you cannot help yourself from taking advantage. That you smile while you hide knives. Jonah blinked slowly. Sounds like somebody had a bad experience with our diplomats. Sae Ren's gaze sharpened. The one who tried to kill me spoke like a diplomat. Jonah's chest tightened. Wait, he said. You mean the attack, it wasn't random. Her eyes dropped. No. A faint tremor passed through Jonah's hands. He tried to sit up again, stubborn pride fighting the pain. This time he made it halfway before the world tilted. Siren moved instantly, supporting him with surprising strength. Her grip was careful, practiced, like someone trained to hold fragile things without breaking them. Jonah exhaled. Okay. Yeah. I'm still mostly held together by hope. She eased him back, then, after a hesitation that felt personal, she remained closer than before. The attack was inside the convoy, Siren said. Someone had access. Someone knew where I would be. Jonah stared at the ceiling, thoughts assembling into something colder and clearer. That means this is political, he murmured. Siren didn't deny it. Jonah swallowed. And I'm, what? A witness? A problem? Sae Ren's voice lowered. You are alive. Jonah gave her a tired look. Yeah, I noticed. People keep saying that like it's surprising. Her eyes flickered with something almost like frustration. It is surprising. Not because you survived. Then why? Because you chose to. Jonah didn't have an answer for that. Not one that sounded noble, anyway. The truth was simpler. He'd seen a kid about to die. He'd reacted. That was it. A soft chime rippled through the room. The walls pulsed once, like a heartbeat. Siren went still. Jonah noticed. What? The Queen has returned, she said quietly. And she is not alone. A moment later, the entrance opened without sound. Queen Velith stepped in like gravity had decided to wear a crown. Two figures followed her, tall, armored, their helmets shaped like sleek predatory faces. They moved with disciplined silence, scanning everything. And behind them came a third. A Litherite male, older than the guards, dressed in layered robes with a stiff high collar. His skin was pale silver and his eyes were narrow and sharp, like he had trained himself never to blink at anything. He looked at Jonah. Not with curiosity. With calculation. Queen Velith spoke first. Physician Corrin says your cognitive functions are intact. Jonah managed, my brain's working. My body is filing complaints. The Queen didn't smile this time. Good. Then you can understand what I am about to say. The male in the robes stepped forward. Hi Queen, he said, voice smooth as poison. With respect, this human should not be awake for this discussion. Jonah frowned. Hey, I'm right here. The male's eyes didn't even acknowledge Jonah's words. His presence complicates the narrative. The conclave will not accept that an outsider interfered with royal bloodline matters. Sairen's posture tightened beside the bed. Queen Velitha's gaze remained calm, but the air felt heavier. The conclave does not command me. The robed male inclined his head slightly, the kind of bow that was technically polite while still insulting. No, but they can fracture your rule. Jonah's pulse quickened. Fracture your rule. That meant war. Or worse, civil collapse. Queen Velith turned her attention back to Jonah. Jonah Reed, she said. Your actions saved my daughter. For that, my house owes you a debt. Jonah nodded carefully. Okay. But debts create ripples, she continued. And ripples attract predators. The robed male finally spoke directly to Jonah now, as if forced. Your species has already been blamed for the attack. It is convenient. Jonah's throat went dry. Blamed? By who? The male's eyes gleamed. By those who require a scapegoat to unite the conclave. Siren snapped. Humans were not responsible. The male didn't look at her. Princess, truth is a luxury reserved for those who win. Jonah's mind raced. If humans got blamed for an attempted royal assassination, Earth wouldn't just be in trouble. Earth would be erased. Queen Velitha's voice cut through the tension like a blade. There is one path that prevents that. Jonah forced himself to focus. Which is? She stepped closer to his bed. Human Jonah Reed, she said, eyes burning with quiet authority. You will stand as a living testimony that my daughter was saved by human hands, not harmed by them. Jonah's stomach dropped. You want me to speak for you? In front of your council? The robed male's lips tightened, displeased. Queen Velith nodded once. You will attend the conclave gathering. Jonah almost laughed, but it came out as a strained breath. I can barely walk. Then you will be carried, the Queen said flatly. If necessary, the entire hall will watch you arrive broken and still standing. Sairen's eyes widened slightly, as if she understood what her mother was doing. Not just protecting Jonah. Using Jonah. As a symbol. Jonah met the Queen's gaze. And if I refuse? The room went silent. Queen Velitha's expression didn't change, but her honesty was terrifying. Then the conclave will decide humanity is a threat, she said. And they will act accordingly. Jonah's mouth felt like sand. The robed male added softly, "Your people will never see it coming. They will believe diplomacy still exists. They will speak. We will strike." Jonah looked at Seren. She looked back, her face tight, but her eyes pleading without words. He understood the trap. If he goes, he becomes a political target. If he doesn't, Earth becomes a tomb. Jonah exhaled slowly and forced his voice to stay calm. "All right," he said. "I'll go." The robed male's eyes narrowed, surprised. "So easily?" Jonah gave him a weak, sharp smile. "Not easily. Just, logically." Queen Velith studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Good." She turned to leave again, but paused at the doorway. "One more thing," she said, voice quieter now, almost personal. "The one who ordered the attack is still inside my court." Jonah's blood went cold. Queen Velitha's eyes locked on his. "And tonight," she said, "they will learn the difference between human courage and human cleverness." The door sealed. Seren stayed beside Jonah, her silence heavier than ever. And Jonah realized, with a sudden, sinking clarity, he hadn't woken up in a hospital. He had woken up in the center of a royal war. And Earth was already on the board. Jonah did not sleep again. Not really. His eyes closed, his body rested, but his mind kept moving, replaying the Queen's words over and over. Earth is already on the board. He had grown up knowing humanity was small on the galactic scale. New. Unproven. Easy to overlook. Easy to erase. Now his heartbeat felt like a countdown. Seren remained beside him through the artificial night cycle. She did not speak unless Jonah spoke first, but her presence grounded him. When pain flared, the room adjusted. When his breathing changed, the light softened. The palace listened. At some point, Jonah broke the silence. "Do they really believe humans did it?" he asked. Seren nodded slowly. "Many do. Or they pretend to." "That robed guy," Jonah said. "He wasn't guessing. He already decided." "He is Councillor Vethrin," Seren replied. "He speaks for 3 major houses. He does not move unless the ground is prepared." Jonah sighed. "Great. So I'm walking into a room full of people who want my species gone." "Yes," she said honestly. He huffed out a breath. "No pressure." Seren looked at him then, really looked. "You are afraid?" "Absolutely," Jonah said. "Anyone who isn't would be lying or broken." She studied his face like she was memorizing a rare pattern. "Then why did you agree?" Jonah was quiet for a moment. "Because," he said slowly, "humans are good at one thing. Standing up when sitting down would be safer." Seren's fingers curled into the fabric of her sleeve. "You should not have to carry this." Jonah gave a faint smile. "Funny thing. I think we're already carrying it, whether we know it or not." The next cycle came fast. Medical staff arrived, efficient and silent, adjusting fields and supports. Jonah's body felt stronger, but not whole. He could stand now, with help. Each step was a negotiation between pain and pride. They dressed him in clothing designed for non-Lithari guests. Simple. Dark. Flexible. It fit his body like it understood humans moved differently, less graceful, more stubborn. As they prepared him, Seren stood nearby, unusually tense. "Hey," Jonah said. "You okay?" She hesitated. "If you fail today, my people will suffer." Jonah nodded. "And if I succeed?" Her voice was barely audible. "Then everything changes." The doors to the conclave hall opened like the mouth of something ancient. The space beyond was vast beyond human scale. Tiered platforms rose in slow arcs, filled with beings of countless shapes and sizes. Feathers. Scales. Light instead of flesh. Armor grown rather than forged. The air buzzed with restrained power. At the center stood a circular platform of polished crystal. Jonah swallowed. Queen Velith entered first. She did not announce herself. She did not need to. The hall quieted instinctively, like predators recognizing a larger predator had arrived. Seren followed at her side. Then Jonah. A murmur spread immediately. Human. That's the human. So fragile. Jonah felt every eye on him. He forced his back straight and his step steady. Pain flared with each movement, but he welcomed it. Pain meant he was awake. Counselor Vethrin stood among the inner circle. His gaze flicked to Jonah, cold and sharp. Queen Velith raised one hand. "I call this conclave to order," she said. "We gather to address the attempted assassination of my daughter." Energy rippled through the hall. Vethrin stepped forward. "High Queen, the evidence suggests off-world interference. Human technology was present. A human ship was destroyed." Jonah felt Seren stiffen beside him. Queen Velith did not look at Vethrin. "Yes. A human ship was destroyed." She turned her head slightly toward Jonah. "Because a human chose to place it between my daughter and death." The hall erupted. Voices overlapped. Accusations flew. Skepticism thickened the air. Vethrin sneered. Convenient theater. Jonah's heart hammered. This was it. If he stayed silent, humanity burned. If he spoke wrong, same result. Queen Velith looked at him. She gave a single nod. Jonah stepped forward. "My name is Jonah Reed," he said, voice echoing farther than he expected. "I'm not a diplomat. I'm not a soldier. I fly cargo." Laughter rippled from some sections. Jonah didn't stop. "When the attack happened, I saw a pod losing power. I saw someone inside." He pointed gently toward Seren. "A kid." The laughter faded. "I didn't know who she was. I didn't care. I just knew she wasn't supposed to die." He took another step forward, pain screaming through his legs. "I didn't plan it. I didn't think it through. I just acted." Vethrin cut in sharply. "A convenient lie." Jonah turned toward him. "You think humans need a reason to do stupid, brave things?" The hall stilled. Jonah spread his hands. "We don't. That's kind of our thing." Murmurs shifted. Confusion replaced certainty. "You want proof." Jonah continued. "Scan my ship logs. Scan my neural implant. You'll see panic, fear, and a very bad decision made very fast." He met Vethrin's eyes. "You'll also see I didn't fire a weapon. I didn't sabotage anything. I just refused to move." Silence fell heavy. Queen Velith stepped forward again. "Counselor Vethrin, if humans wished my daughter dead, this one would not be standing here broken to prove otherwise." Vethrin's jaw tightened. "One human does not represent a species." Jonah nodded. "You're right." He took a breath. "But we're contagious." A ripple of surprise spread. "When one human stands up like this," Jonah said, "others follow. Not because we're ordered to. Because we don't like bullies." He looked around the hall. "And from where I'm standing, blaming my people for your internal problems sounds a lot like bullying." The conclave erupted again, this time divided. Queen Velith raised her hand once more. "The human will remain under my protection," she declared. "Any action against his species will be considered an act against my throne." That landed like thunder. Vethrin's eyes burned with hatred. Jonah knew then, this wasn't over. Not even close. As the hall began to dissolve into argument, Jonah leaned close and whispered, "You didn't just save your world." Jonah swallowed. "What did I do?" She met his eyes. "You taught them to fear human choice." And somewhere beyond the palace, far across the stars, humanity's quiet reputation had just changed forever. The conclave session ended without a verdict. That alone terrified the Empire. Jonah felt it the moment they left the hall. The silence wasn't calm, it was charged, like the pause before a storm decides which direction to fall. Guards escorted them through corridors that now felt narrower, heavier, as if the palace itself sensed uncertainty. Fen walked close to Jonah, not touching him, but near enough that he could feel her presence. It steadied him more than the medical field humming softly around his spine. "You unsettled them," she said quietly. Jonah exhaled. "Good." She glanced at him, surprised. "They don't like uncertainty," Jonah continued. "Neither do humans. Difference is, we learned how to survive in it." Queen Velith waited for them in a private chamber overlooking the capital world. Outside the transparent wall, an entire city stretched across the horizon, spires of light, floating transit lines, structures grown rather than built. It was beautiful. And fragile. "You spoke well," the Queen said without preamble. Jonah shrugged carefully. "I spoke honestly." "That is rarer," she replied. She turned toward the window. "Vethrin will not stop. He does not fear truth. He fears precedent." Jonah frowned. "Precedent?" "Today," Queen Velith said, "a human stood before the conclave and was not small." The words settled heavily. "For centuries," she continued, "new species have entered galactic awareness as clients, tools, or threats. You arrived as a choice." Esairen's voice was tight. "They don't know how to categorize that." Jonah leaned back against a support rail, wincing. "Humans get that a lot." Queen Velith turned to face him fully now. "Councillor Vethrin controls fleets. Intelligence networks. Economic pressure. He cannot openly move against my house. Not yet. So he will move elsewhere." Jonah's stomach dropped. "Earth." "Yes." Esairen's hands clenched. "Mother." "I know," the Queen said softly. "Which is why this next step matters." Jonah straightened. "What step?" Queen Velith studied him carefully. "Humans are underestimated because you appear disunited. Fragmented. Chaotic." Jonah gave a dry smile. "We are. But when threatened," she continued, "you align faster than logic predicts." Jonah's smile faded. "You've been studying us." "Yes," she said simply. "And now I intend to test a hypothesis." Esairen's eyes widened. "You want to reveal him?" Queen Velith nodded. "Publicly. Across the conclave network." Jonah blinked. "Reveal me. As in, me." "As proof," the Queen said. "Not of strength. Of will." Jonah ran a hand through his hair. "You realize once humans see this, we won't stay quiet." "That," Queen Velith replied, "is precisely the point." Within hours, the broadcast went live. Not to Earth first, but to the galaxy. Jonah stood on a raised platform, supported but upright. His image projected across hundreds of worlds. Humans watching from deep space relays, traders, scientists, civilians, many seeing aliens clearly for the first time. And aliens seeing a human who had said no. "My name is Jonah Reed," he began again, steadier this time. "I'm not special." He paused, letting that land. "I didn't act because I was ordered to, or paid, or promised anything." His gaze hardened. "I acted because someone tried to take a life, and I didn't accept that." The feed exploded with attention. "I'm standing here because an empire chose to protect me instead of erase me," Jonah continued. "That matters. Because it proves something." He looked directly into the camera. "When humans are treated as people, we respond with loyalty." Glenn watched from the side, heart pounding. "And when we're treated as disposable," Jonah finished quietly, "we don't disappear. We adapt." The broadcast ended. Across Earth, reaction was immediate. Governments scrambled. Networks froze. Analysts argued. But something deeper stirred, something older than nations. Humans saw one of their own stand alone before gods and not bow. And that changed the math. Vethrin moved sooner than expected. 3 days later, Lithari sensors detected fleet mobilization near a neutral corridor bordering human space. Not an invasion. A demonstration. Queen Velith stood with Jonah and Esairen as the report came in. "He wants you afraid," Jonah said. "Yes," the Queen replied. He believes fear will fracture your species. Jonah nodded slowly. That's where he's wrong. He looked at Seren. Can you get me a channel to Earth? The Queen raised a brow. You would speak again. Jonah smiled, not gently this time. I think it's time humans remember who they are. The message Jonah sent was not polished. It wasn't diplomatic. It was honest. They think we're weak because we argue, he told Earth. They think we're divided because we don't look united. He leaned closer to the camera. They forgot something. The feed cut to footage. Human engineers rewiring ships in days, not months. Civilians volunteering resources. Hackers punching through alien encryption out of sheer curiosity. When humans choose, Jonah said, we move fast. Queen Velith watched the data spike in real time. Human fleets weren't mobilizing. Human networks were. Trade routes rerouted. Supply chains shifted. Alien markets destabilized, not through force, but refusal. Seren whispered, awed, they're not attacking. Jonah nodded. We don't need to. Across the conclave, panic spread. Vethrin stared at reports cascading across his displays. Humanity wasn't fighting. Humanity was reorganizing the galaxy around itself. Queen Velith exhaled slowly. Remarkable, she murmured. Jonah didn't smile. This is just the beginning. And for the first time in galactic history, an ancient empire realized the truth too late. Humans didn't conquer by force. They conquered by choosing not to be small. The galaxy did not like what humanity was doing. It preferred wars that looked like wars, fleets, explosions, surrender documents. What humans offered instead was uncertainty. No invasion. No declarations. Just millions of small decisions, made independently, that somehow aligned into one unstoppable shift. Trade lanes went quiet. Human crews began declining contracts with conclave-affiliated houses. Not loudly. Not angrily. Just politely. Insurance firms rewrote risk models overnight. Human logistics AIS, open source and adaptive, found inefficiencies in alien supply chains that had existed for centuries, and corrected them out of existence. Nothing broke. Everything stalled. Councillor Vethrin watched the numbers and felt something he had not felt since his rise to power. Fear. They are not behaving like a species under threat, one of his advisors said. They are behaving like a system that has found leverage. Vethrin's jaw tightened. Find their weakness. We are trying. You have fleets, he snapped. Use them. The advisor hesitated. An overt strike would validate the High Queen's position. And human retaliation would not be symmetrical. Vethrin turned slowly. Explain. They do not need to win battles, the advisor said. They only need to make participation expensive. Vethrin dismissed him with a sharp gesture. Across the capital world, Jonah felt the tension tightening like a wire drawn too far. Queen Velith had called him into a secure chamber, this one shielded from all outside signals. Fen stood at her side, arms folded, expression hard. You have disrupted centuries of balance, the Queen said. Jonah nodded. Balance usually favors whoever's already on top. Yes, Velith agreed. Which is why this is dangerous. She brought up a projection. Human colonies, trade nodes, research stations. Red markers began appearing along the edges. Vethrin cannot strike Earth directly, she said. But he can bleed your periphery. Jonah leaned closer. Raids. Sabotage. Proxy conflicts. He will make your people tired. Jonah exhaled slowly. Humans are used to that. Thren looked at him sharply. Used to suffering does not mean immune. Jonah met her gaze. No, but it means we plan for it. Queen Velith studied him for a long moment. You are thinking ahead. Jonah nodded. We always do. It's how we survive. The first strike came within hours. A human-operated station on the edge of neutral space lost power. No casualties. Clean. Surgical. The message was clear. We can hurt you. The human response was strange. They evacuated the station within minutes. Then released the station schematics publicly, every system, every vulnerability, every maintenance workaround. Alien analysts stared in disbelief. They gave away their own infrastructure, one muttered. No, another corrected. They made it obsolete. Jonah watched the report stream in, jaw set. They're forcing transparency, S.A. Wren said softly. Why? Because secrecy is expensive, Jonah replied. And humans learned a long time ago that sunlight breaks monopolies. The next strikes escalated. More stations. More disruptions. And each time, humanity responded by removing the value of the target. No retaliation fleets. No threats. Just adaptation at a speed that made older civilizations feel slow and brittle. Queen Velith convened an emergency council of her own, trusted houses only. They are provoking a response, one elder warned. This ends in war. Jonah spoke before the Queen could. No, he said. This ends in a decision. All eyes turned to him. Vethrin wants us angry, Jonah continued. Wants us scared. Wants us to look like every other young species that panics and reaches for weapons. Seren nodded slowly. And you refuse? Jonah met her eyes. Because if we fight his way, we lose his way. Queen Velith leaned back, thoughtful. Then what do you propose? Jonah took a breath. This was the part that scared him, not the aliens, not the politics. The responsibility. Give me access, he said, to your archives, your economic models, your historical disputes. A murmur spread. You ask for dangerous knowledge, one elder said. Jonah shrugged. Humans are good at dangerous knowledge. Queen Velith held up a hand. Silence fell. You would give us a solution without bloodshed, she asked. Jonah nodded. Or at least, less bloodshed. The access was granted. What Jonah and a distributed network of human analysts did with it shocked the conclave. They didn't target Vethrin directly. They mapped influence. They identified dependencies, minor houses bound to Vethrin not by loyalty, but by outdated agreements, unfair trade terms, inherited debt structures no one had questioned in generations. Then humans did what humans did best. They asked why. Quietly, offers appeared. Better terms. Transparent contracts. No hidden clauses. No oaths. Just options. House by house, support began to shift. Vethrin noticed too late. You're stealing my allies, he hissed in a private transmission to Queen Velith. I am offering them choice, she replied calmly. You taught them fear. The human taught them alternatives. Vethrin's eyes burned. This is not over. No, Velith agreed. It is beginning. The breaking point came when one of Vethrin's own fleets refused an order. Not defected. Refused. Their commander cited contractual ambiguity and withdrew to neutral space. The conclave reeled. Authority, once absolute, had become negotiable. Jonah stood beside Seren on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights below felt dimmer somehow, not weaker, but reconsidering themselves. You're changing everything, she said quietly. Jonah shook his head. We're just participating. Seren looked at him. You could have gone home. Jonah smiled faintly. Still might. But not yet. She hesitated. Why stay? Jonah looked out at the stars. Because once you show people they have a choice, he said, you don't get to walk away from the consequences. Behind them, the galaxy shifted. And Councillor Vethrin, watching his power erode without a single shot fired, made his final, desperate decision. If humans would not fight like children, he would force them to fight like gods. Vethrin did not announce his final move. He understood optics too well for that. Instead, 3 distant stars went dark. Not destroyed. Not exploded. Simply, gone. Their light folded inward, swallowed by artificial gravity wells so precise that the systems collapsed into silence. No warning. No spectacle. Just absence. The message reached the conclave, then Earth, within minutes. This is what gods can do. Across human space, panic surged for the first time. Jonah felt it immediately. Not through screens or reports, but through the shift in tone. Human channels grew louder, sharper, angrier. The old instinct rose from humanity's bones. Fight back. Seren stood beside him in the strategy chamber, her face pale. He used forbidden tech. Even ancient empires avoid this. Queen Velitha's hands rested on the table, steady but tight. He has crossed a line. Jonah stared at the star map, jaw clenched. 3 empty scars burned where systems had been. He wants us to hit him, Jonah said. Hard. Fast. Loud. Yes, the Queen replied. And many in the conclave will support him if you do. Jonah closed his eyes briefly. Human fleets were already mobilizing, not for attack, but defense. The temptation was there. Humanity could strike back now. They had allies. Momentum. Justification. And that was exactly why it would be a mistake. Jonah opened his eyes. No, he said quietly. We don't play his endgame. Seren turned sharply. Jonah, those systems. I know, he said. And I won't forget them. But if we answer gods with gods, the galaxy burns. Queen Velith studied him, searching. Then what does humanity choose? Jonah straightened. We choose to be seen. The plan spread faster than any fleet. Human networks opened completely, not just data, but intent. Every model. Every forecast. Every contingency humanity had built since discovering it wasn't alone. They showed the galaxy what would happen if Vethrin's path continued. Not war. Collapse. Trade implosions. Refugee cascades. Systems abandoning alliances out of sheer survival instinct. The end of centralized power, not by conquest, but by irrelevance. Then Jonah spoke again, this time to everyone. Councillor Vethrin thinks power comes from fear, Jonah said, standing beside Queen Velith and Seren before a united broadcast. He thinks destroying stars makes him a god. Jonah's voice hardened. Humans don't worship gods that demand silence. The feed shifted. Human rescue fleets entered the darkened systems, not to reverse the damage, but to extract survivors from fringe habitats that had been hidden, forgotten, ignored by the Empire. Millions saved. Not for loyalty. Not for leverage. Just because they were there. Seren watched, stunned. You're turning his terror into your compassion. Jonah nodded. Fear shrinks the universe. Curiosity expands it. The conclave fractured openly. Houses withdrew support from Vethrin in waves. Not because he was cruel, but because he was inefficient. Unstable. Expensive. Vethrin raged. This is manipulation, he screamed in his final address. Jonah replied calmly. No. This is consent. When the conclave voted, it wasn't unanimous. It didn't need to be. Vethrin was stripped of command. His fleets dissolved into neutral oversight. His god weapon was sealed and buried under 1,000 legal and logistical locks, most designed by humans. The galaxy exhaled. Weeks later, Jonah stood at the same balcony where it had all begun. Seren joined him, the city glowing below. You could stay, she said softly. You are important here. Jonah smiled. Humans don't do well as monuments. Queen Velith approached, regal and composed. Your species has altered the trajectory of history. Jonah shrugged. We just showed up. She inclined her head. That was enough. A human ship waited in orbit. Repaired. Ready. As Jonah prepared to leave, Seren hesitated, then placed a small crystal in his hand. What's this? He asked. A record, she said, of the moment the galaxy learned humans were not small. Jonah closed his fingers around it. As his ship jumped away, The stars didn't feel distant anymore. Across the galaxy, new species began asking different questions. Not how strong are humans, but what will they choose next? And for the first time in history, the universe waited for humanity's answer.